Hi, my name's Drew, and I'm going to be walking you through the Retro 265 RB by Riverside RV. So coming right up front here, we have your coupler. We're going to go over that loading and unloading process. As this coupler sits now, this would be in the unlocked position. That means we're ready to go ahead and load it. So starting out, we're going to go ahead and raise this ram power jack 3 inches above our ball. We are then going to, of course, back our vehicle underneath the coupler, so center our ball underneath the coupler here. We're then going to go ahead and lower that down. Once that coupler is fully seated on the ball, we can go ahead and latch this forward into this locked position here. What we're looking for specifically is we have 2 vampire teeth or 2 tabs there, and we do want to make sure that they are laying flush there into the frame. So that's what we're looking for there. Now from there, you could go ahead and pin this. There's a hole here to accommodate a pin. That's just going to give you a little bit of added security, keep this from potentially like rattling loose going down the road or something like that. Definitely recommended, but it is not included with the unit, so that's something you would have to upgrade to later. So from there, we're fully seated here on the ball, we're locked in. We can go ahead and run the jack all the way up from that position. Of course, all the weight's there on the ball, so we don't have to worry about the unit taking off on us or anything like that. From there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to cross your tow chains underneath the coupler and hook those onto the receiver. Now, it is state law in Texas that these tow chains do need to be crossed again underneath the coupler, and it is also against the law for these to make contact with the pavement at any given time. So what you're doing is you're going to be skating that line in between having enough room to make your turns left to right, but not so much room that these could potentially make contact with the pavement. Riding right next to those chains is going to be a very important piece of equipment. This is going to be your emergency breakaway cable. What this is essentially your last line of defense or your last safety feature. God forbid that this coupler here were to fail, as well as these tow chains were to fail. As the 2 vehicles separated, this is going to act like a ripcord to the electric brake system, putting full 12 volts, locking those brakes up, doing its best to prevent like a runaway trailer situation there. So this is riding right tow chains, and it does need a separate connection point to the receiver. So whether that's a quick link, carabiner, whatever you got, as long as this is connected separately on the receiver, you're going to be good. Now again, same rule of thumb, enough room to make your turns, but not so much room that it touches the ground. We have your seven-way wiring here. Now this plug is going to plug into the receptacle on your bumper. This is going to give you full function to your tow vehicle's braking system, charging system, tail lights, marker lights, things like that. So again, sounds a bit redundant, but enough room to make your turns left to right, but not so much that this is going to drag on the ground. This is a pretty long cord, so that is some realistic scenario there. Up top here, we have your RAM power jack. As you see, it has a light there that's going to give you a point of reference if you are backing up to the unit at dark time. Also going to light your way here if you're doing any coupling or uncoupling again after dark. And then clearly marked up or down operation with that switch there. Of course, that's how we're going to load and unload the unit. Back here in this hole, we have your manual drive for the unit. So if you were to have a power loss situation, you could go ahead and stick the included crank handle down there. It is a spline drive system. You can go ahead and manipulate this up or down, again, in the event of an emergency, so you can go ahead and at least load the unit up and take it to get serviced. Directly behind that, we have 2 20-pound propane tanks. These are going to be full for you today. Open and close valve is located here on the top. I do find that most people are similar with these or are familiar with these or have seen them previously. This is the same variant you're going to find on any gas grill. You know, very, very standard propane cylinders. In between those, we have your regulator here, this propane regulator. This is directionalized to whichever tank you want to draw off of. When you're looking at these tanks, you can go ahead and think of one as your primary, one as your secondary. Whichever is your primary is going to be, this is going to be pointed to. And as long as we have that valve open, it's going to have no problem drawing off that tank. Now, if it draws on that tank until it empties it, And if we have this valve on the secondary tank open, it's going to automatically switch over to that secondary tank. If you want to avoid that from happening, just go ahead and keep this valve in the closed position. At that point, once this tank is used up, we're then going to have to manually switch it over and then go ahead and open the valve here. This is all covered by your propane cover here. This is just going to slip over top of your tanks there. Of course, has an access door. We do want to make sure that that access door, the latches of so is, you know, pointed towards the back. That way it's not going to catch wind or anything going down the road. Behind that, we have a brand new Interstate deep cycle battery. With that comes a small amount of maintenance. What that's going to entail is 2 or 3 times a year, we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull these vent panels up. We're going to go ahead and inspect the water level. So there is a clear marked water line in there. And we do just want to maintain that water level. What we're going to use to do so is going to be distilled water. So it is very important that we, again, only use distilled water to do so. That's going to be best for the longevity of the battery. And we're going to want to focus on those inspections in the hottest of months, is generally when you see that water get a little low. Coming around here to the side, we have stabilizer jacks on all 4 corners of the unit. Now these are a 3/4 inch drive nut there. Again, you're going to find a crank handle on the inside of the unit to go ahead and you would slip that over the drive nut here, come down, make contact with the pavement, maybe a 1/4 turn more. Now these are for stabilization, they're not for leveling. If we're doing any leveling, we're going to use that main tongue jack up front. Leveling from left to right is going to be done with the tires and what's called a leveling kit. There's of course a multitude of different options available on the market. Most of them work in a similar fashion. You'll go ahead, educate yourself, figure out which one you like, and of course you're going to need to use one. So once you are level, we're then going to go ahead and run these down. And these are just to shore up the floor. They're to make it feel like you're not walking around on a couple tires and you know, keep the unit from rocking and things like that. Moving on, we have your slide out here. Now this is a pretty large slide out. It utilizes that Schwintek system to push that slide in and out. What that means for you is, again, it's going to carry some maintenance. In this particular setup, we're going to have to lubricate these tracks here. Now you have these tracks top to bottom, left to right, so there are 4 tracks total. What we're going to use here is a PTFE silicone lubricant. We're going to go ahead and spray those tracks down once every 90 days. And then we're going to go ahead and run that slide in and out a few times to distribute that lubricant, and we are going to be good for the next 90 days. Now, also on that same maintenance schedule, we have these seals here. We do want to condition those seals, keep them nice and supple, especially in the hot or the summer months when that sun's going to be beating down on them. We do want to make sure we are conditioning them. Use an RV grade seal conditioner, go ahead and spray them down. Wipe off any excess, let it sit for a certain amount of time, and then you're going to be good for the next 90 days. Also, you do have a set of seals there on the inside of the unit. It is very important that we condition those as well on those same intervals. Taking a look down low, make sure we're not missing anything. Moving on here. So we have your tires and your lug nuts here. It is very important that you do a couple things there. Number one is going to be retorquing those lug nuts. So those lug nuts have been torqued to 100 foot-pounds here in the shop. The manufacturer recommends a retorque procedure. What that is going to entail is the first 15, 25, 50, and 100 miles of initial travel. It is very important that we stop at those intervals. We go ahead and remove those hubcaps, and we retorque those down to 100 foot-pounds. Manufacturer further recommends that at the start of each trip thereon after, we are checking and making sure they are maintaining that 100 foot-pounds of torque. Now, with all trailer tires, we run them at the max tire pressure rating. That is, of course, stamped in the sidewall of the tire, that more traditional location that you're used to seeing. We also have a data tag up here in the front corner that is going to let you know of that rating, and I believe it is 65 psi for these tires, and excuse me, that's going to be 60 psi. So run these tires at 60 psi. That is again the max tire pressure rating. That's exactly where we want to run them. That's going to give us the highest flexibility in terms of weight. Whether we are completely full or completely empty, that 60 psi is the magic number. So starting up top here, we have a cable satellite inlet. This is just a standard RG6 cable fitting. passes through the wall to the designated TV area. What that's designed for is to feed a part cable service to the unit, you know, aftermarket satellite package, any of those services. And again, it's just a standard cable fitting that passes through to the designated TV area of the camper. We have your potable water fill here. What that's for is if we're doing any boondocking or off-grid camping, if we don't have access to full-time running water, we're going to go ahead and use that. That's how we're going to fill that onboard water tank. We're going to stick a drinking water hose directly in there. We're going to fill it up till it overflows. Once we're full, we go ahead and cap it off, and then we use that onboard water pump to go ahead and pressurize that system and draw that water up to the fixtures. That switch is of course located on the inside. We will go ahead and get eyes on that when we do go to the inside. And then up top here we have a Zamp solar plug here. Now that is designed to accommodate any portable solar panel. This is an Anderson style plug, so as long as your corresponding panel has that plug, you can go ahead and use it there. What that is a plug and play connection to the battery, so it makes it very easy for you to add a portable panel. Essentially just plugging it in here, taking your panel out into the sun, and that's all you got to do. That panel has a charge controller built directly into the panel. It's going to intake energy as necessary. Once that battery is completely full, it's going to, you know, stop taking in energy, so it's not going to overcharge your battery. Excellent addition. It allows you to park your camper in the shade but still take advantage of solar by running that solar panel out in the sun. Down low here we have your 30 amp 110 volt power supply. This is your cord, comes with the unit. It's 30 feet in length. Does only plug into the camper one way. So if I go ahead and unscrew this coupler and remove that plug, we're going to see we have one L-shaped receptacle and an L-shaped corresponding prong there. Now if I go ahead and plug it straight in, line up those two L-shaped prongs, give it an 1/8 inch turn to the right, that locks it in. Then we do have a secondary collar here. We're going to screw down, lock it in further. Very, very easy. Is only going to be accommodated one way. One recommendation I do make, and I make this for every single unit that I deliver, is on the inside of this unit, I don't need to tell you that we have a lot of stuff going on electronically, a lot of very sensitive electronics in here. It is very important that we add a 30 amp surge protector in line with the unit. It is really the #1 thing you can do to protect your investment from not only surges, substandard wiring, dirty power, things like that. It is very, very important that we do go ahead and protect that. Now that surge protector is going to plug directly into your power source and then your cord in line with that. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to give our parts department a call. They'd be more than happy to educate you further on the importance of a surge protector and give you an idea of what products they would recommend. Coming up next, we have your city water connection here. Now we're going to go ahead and use this in the capacity of an RV park. Anytime we have full-time access to running water, this is going to be our guy here. Water pressure becomes very important when we talk about city water connection because of course the PEX plumbing within the unit is rated to a certain standard. Now these units are designed to run a working water pressure of in between 40 and 75 psi. Now we're including a water pressure regulator with your purchase. That's going to go ahead and regulate that water pressure in between 40 and 50 psi. Now if that happens to not be enough pressure for your liking, feel free to upgrade to either an adjustable water pressure regulator or a high flow water pressure regulator. As long as we're not exceeding that 75 psi, we're going to be good. So with any water pressure regulator, again, we're going to hook that directly onto the water source as close to the spigot as we can get, and then we're going to hook our hose into that, ultimately making our connection here at the trailer by rotating that trailer bound connection here. Very straightforward, very easy. If you lose, damage, misplace your water or your water pressure regulator, make sure that we replace it before taking the unit out. You don't want to run this unit without a water pressure regulator for any amount of time at all. So, and then beside that, we have your black tank flush. Now this corresponds with a jet inside the black water tank. It's an awesome feature to help you keep the inside of that tank clean, keep that toilet waste, body waste, things like that from compounding. It does have a limitation though, so there is nothing to keep that waste in the tank or that waste water in the tank if you were to overflow the tank. Path of least resistance is actually the rooftop septic vents. So you want to be extra sure when you are rinsing that tank that you know how much water you've put into it. My recommendation is going to be going ahead and monitoring it with the monitor panel on the inside while using it. It's not something that you're going to want to get sidetracked while taking part in. So be diligent, keep your mind on what you're doing, watch the monitor panel on the inside, make sure we're not overflowing the unit. Once we get to half or 2/3 full, we're then going to come down here and we're going to relieve that pressure here on this black water valve. We have your valves here. Black water valve is here. It's going to be a 6-inch pull to open it. And then we have your gray water valve a little further back, hiding there. And you saw me open and close both of them. So it is just a 6-inch pull to open. So again, hasn't been talked about yet, but black water is going to be toilet waste, body waste, anything that comes from the toilet essentially. And gray water is going to be the relatively cleaner of the two. That's going to be, you know, sink water, dishwater, shower water, things like that. So black water does need to be in the closed position. It will remain in the closed position, excuse me, even when you are hooked up to full-time septic. It is very important, again, that we keep the contents of that black water tank in as wet or flowing condition as we can. We want to avoid any compounding of toilet waste, toilet paper, things like that. And the only way to do so is to keep it in as wet of a condition as we can. So keep that valve in the closed position. Only open it when your monitor panel either says full or you have finished up your trip and you're about to leave the campsite. You can then go ahead and dump no matter the level of full. Gray water, it's not as important whether you keep that open or closed during use. Of course, there is no solid waste with that. One good rule of thumb is never have both of them open at the same time. A popular option is to close that gray water valve, of course, dump your black water. Once you're fairly certain that you've dumped all of your black water, you can go ahead and close that black water valve, and then you can pull the gray water. That's going to rinse any shared plumbing between the two, and of course rinse your sewage hose on the way out. It is very, very important that we do not open both of those at the same time. We don't want to have any cross-contamination issues or backfeeding, things like that. So in between the valves there, we have your bayonet style fitting. That's where we're of course going to hook your septic hose. That bayonet fitting, or that sewage hose, is going to connect the very same way that cap comes off. So what that's going to look like for you is around the outside of this piping, we have 4 prongs. And on the sewage hose and the cap, we're going to have a little keyhole. We're going to go ahead and put that keyhole in the halfway position of the prongs, give it a turn until it locks on, and then we are, you know, fully connected to the septic side of things. Now again, I can't say it enough, even when we are hooked up to full-time septic, that black water valve does need to be in the closed position. Moving on here, coming around here to the back side, not too terribly much going on here, but we still have some features to talk about. We of course have a tube storage bumper. This is designed to house your sewage hose when you're going down the road. It does have a removable cap on each side. You can use that for any long storage or again your sewage hose. For some of those higher end, more robust sewage hoses, you may have a problem fitting them in this location, but for the sewage hose that we include with your purchase, that's going to fit in there no problem at all. Full-size spare here on the rear. When we do talk about changing a tire, it's very important to note that this unit does not come with a jack. So you're going to, of course, need to make sure that your jack that is in your tow vehicle is going to raise the vehicle enough to accommodate changing a tire. When we do change a tire, we're going to put our jack directly on the axle as close to the tire as we can without it interfering in our work. And then, of course, we're going to safely jack it up, do our work, of course, being as careful as we can. Also here on the rear, we have your tail lights, license plate lights. Of course, you have a small storage compartment. Nothing too crazy to speak of. It's a peculiarly located storage compartment. One thing that I almost did, which you're going to want to avoid, this day and age, me personally, especially me, I'm so used to units that have magnetic hold opens. That's kind of the standard these days. And what happens is you get so used to that, to being able to just go ahead and grab the compartment door and go ahead and bring it down, that I forget that some of these units still use these clips. Now, if you make a habit of doing that, you can actually damage these clips. So what you're going to do is you're going to physically release that clip and bring that down. So Just a little tip there. Also up top here, we have a pre-wire for a backup camera. Now that backup camera is going to be, if you choose to install it, will be tied into the marker lights. What that means is anytime we're running down the road with the lights on, it's going to give us a full rear view, So that's helpful, you know, to monitor anybody coming up on your rear, going down the highway, of course, or backing into space, things like that. It's an excellent, excellent upgrade. It is very easy to upgrade since they have already really done all the hard work for you. Behind that place saver there is just going to be the wiring for everything. Just very simply hook up the wiring and you're good to go. Coming around here, one of my favorite things here with this particular unit is going to be this outside kitchen. They've done a very good job at giving you these features here. You have this griddle, and I love this griddle. It's just so cool, you know, to have a griddle in a camper. It's, again, not something you generally will see too often, but it works tremendously well. So this is going to utilize a series of quick connects to go ahead and feed propane gas to the unit. It's cool. You don't have to keep a separate supply of propane with the unit. It does tap into your tanks up front. So if we come down low here, we're going to see a quick connect fitting. We're going to go ahead and we're going to remove that debris keeper out of the way. And what we would do is we have the male end here. We're going to go ahead and slide that locking collar back, and we're going to insert that male end there. And then once we've done so, we have a valve there. We need to turn that valve in the on position like so. And then we're going to come up here. And they got a little tag here I'm gonna undo here. And we're going to find the connection of the grill, and that is actually up top here. So little there, back behind there, we have that similar connection. And I'm kind of blocking your view there, but you would slide this locking collar back while inserting that male end fully. That's gonna feed that supply of propane there. Just going to go ahead and turn this valve off before we move on. So once we have propane flowing to the unit, this knob here actually has an igniter here, and if we remove the griddle top, we can kind of see what's going on with that. Of course, this is your burner, and as I push this in, that's like giving you a burst of propane, and then as I turn the knob, it actually sparks it too. So you may have to do that a couple times, going back into that reset position before it actually lights. But once you see the flame here, you can go ahead and dial that up or down in terms of temperature. And then once we get that going, we of course put the griddle top back on. Now this griddle top, with this griddle top in place, it does not fit back here into the drawer. So you know, maybe here on the side or somewhere within the unit, you can figure out a place to go ahead and store that griddle top before stowing this back into its place. What we have here is going to be a little mini fridge. This is a really cool idea, 110 volt mini fridge outside here, you know, just to have a secondary fridge, especially here in this external location, is a pretty cool feature. What we have here is going to be your 6-gallon water heater. Now this is a dual source water heater. What that means is it runs on 110 volt electricity as well as propane gas with 12 volt direct spark ignition. Generally with these retros, they separate the switching. That means that your 110 volt element switch is going to be right here underneath the propane regulator. That is marked on and off. Now the limitation I've seen with that is if a lot of times people will forget to turn that off when they do go to drain it. We're going to talk more about draining the unit here in just a few seconds, but your propane switch to turn that on and off and take advantage of that is going to be on the inside. So separating the switches, it's just something that they've done over the years. Again, shouldn't throw you for a loop or anything like that. So more in depth with the appliance here, the manufacturer does recommend two very specific things. Number one is going to be anytime the unit's going to be in storage for more than 7 days, it is very important that we drain the unit. Excuse me. We are going to want to go ahead and drain the unit. So anytime it's going to be in storage for more than 7 days, we need to drain it. So the steps on how to do so, it's very important that we follow them specifically from a safety standpoint. If we neglect to do it properly, it can, it could end not good. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to cut the inflow of water to the unit completely. So that means if we're running on city water connection, we're going to physically turn off the valve. If we are running on potable water, we're going to go ahead and we're going to turn the water pump off. So with no new water running into the unit completely, we're then going to depressurize the unit. What we're going to use to depressurize the unit is any internal fixture within the unit. So whether that's the kitchen sink, bathroom sink, outside shower, any of those things we can go ahead and use. We're going to focus on the hot side of any fixture. So what we're going to do is turn the hot side of the fixture with no new water running to the unit. That water is going to run for just a few seconds. It's going to blow off that excess pressure, that small amount of remaining water. So once we see no new water coming from that fixture, we have then already depressurized the unit. We are going to go ahead and be safe to drain it. So from there, we're going to come down here to this drain plug. We're going to use an 1.1/8" socket and extension, and we're going to go ahead, 1.16" socket and extension, and we're going to go ahead and back that drain plug out. From there, we're going to see the remaining, 4 to 5 gallons of water come rushing from the unit there. No real easy way to contain that water, so make sure you're at a place where it can drain freely. So once we've done that, of course, we've drained the water heater. We can go ahead and put that anode rod back in. We're clear for storage. We're not going to run into any issues there. Now, in returning the unit back to service or getting ready to go on a trip, we are going to need to prime the water heater or pump 6 gallons of water into the water heater before using it. And it is very important we do that as well, because we don't want to have any dry fire scenarios. We don't want to run the unit without any water in it. It's going to damage the tank and the electronics within the unit. So to do that, it's going to be a very similar process, except for we are going to introduce water to the unit. So instead of cutting it off like we did to drain it, we're going to introduce it. So we're going to turn the spigot on or turn the water pump on. So with new water flowing to the unit, we're then going to go to the hot side of the spigot or the fixture, and we're going to turn it on. Now we're going to see a little different things happening this time. That flow is going to be very interrupted, very spitty, very bubbly. What's happening is it's actually displacing the air that has filled the tank and replacing it with water. So once we see that flow normalize at the fixture, that is our indicator that we do have 6 gallons of water within the unit. We can then go ahead and light it. Again, whether that's going to be utilizing the 110 volt element or the propane with direct spark ignition there on the inside. Again, manufacturer recommends those two things, and they are very, very important to keep this closed system nice and fresh. Now, we also have a couple louvers here as well as grating, and it's very important that we protect this appliance specifically from the intrusion of mud daubers and flying insects. They are attracted to the smell of propane. They want nothing more but to crawl within these louvers as deep within the appliance as they can and make their dirt nest. So a little bit of foresight in the beginning can save you a big headache down the road, because it is very labor intensive to go ahead and clean those out. So bug screens here, that not only goes for the water heater, but it does go for all of the propane burning appliances. And I think the only other one you have with this particular unit is going to be the furnace. So keep that in mind. So a lot of information we've discussed about that. So keep that in mind. A couple 110 volt all-weather outlets here, nothing too crazy, just a couple 15 amp outlets to power any stuff you want to here on the porch. Outside shower, again, nothing too crazy. Access to hot and cold water. Fixture and sprayer do wrap all the way up into one self-contained unit. Sprayer here does have an on-off switch. That's going to help you conserve overall water consumption. This is excellent if you want to set up a shower tent, or if you just go to the beach and need to wash the sand off your feet, wash your critters, whatever. This will work well for that. And then we do have your propane burning furnace vent here. Now this is an exhaust vent. It is very important that we do make sure we let it exhaust. We're not going to restrict the flow, especially when they are located here on the porch side of things. I could see somebody putting a lawn chair up in front of that, forgetting that it's there. When it becomes dark time, it gets a little cold, you fire that up. Next thing you know, you're melting a hole in your lawn chair. So keep that in mind. It does blow very hot air when it is on. We absolutely do not want to restrict the flow. Keep it free breathing. And again, a very large intrusion point for mud daubers and flying insects, so it is important that we do screen this off, again, with a specifically cut aftermarket bug screen. Backtracking a little bit, we have your hood vent here. Now this corresponds with the inside hood vent above the stove. Very important that before cooking a meal and using it, we do want to go ahead and open that up. This one seems to be a little stiff, but we want to make sure we open that up so that we can actually exhaust that hot air. I've heard horror stories of people forgetting and then they cook a meal and that fan draws that hot air up. I've heard of these actually getting melted. But also, just as important as opening it before cooking a meal, we do want to make sure that we close it before going down the road. That's going to keep any weather or road debris from making its way into the unit. So very important that we do that. It is very easy. You just have those tabs there. Other than that, your awning, speakers, porch light, all that fun stuff we're going to take a look at on the inside. All the power controls for that are going to be on the inside, so we'll take a look at that when we get inside. Coming on down here, again, taking a look, making sure we're not missing anything. We have the other side of the pass-through storage compartment here. One thing I neglected to point out on the other side is, of course, we have lights there. You can see it on the other side. We have those on both sides. Now, if we find that light and we find the center of it, there's a button right in the center to turn that light on and off. Very easy to do so. It's a nice addition to be able to light that compartment, especially if you have cargo deep within there, to see what you have in there. Just taking a look up front, making sure we didn't miss anything. Not sure if I told you about the porch light up front here, but it does have its own on-off switch. It's going to be directly underneath the fixture. I think that just about covers it here on the exterior of the unit. We have a ton of great features on the inside. Let's go ahead and take a look at those. All right, here right inside the entry door, not too terribly much going on right when you walk in, but I do want to point out the location here of your fire extinguisher. This is part of your safety equipment. It's very, very important that we do test all of our safety equipment every single time we take the unit out. For this particular appliance here, we push that green test tab down. If that springs back, that means we still have life in the unit, it is safe to use. If that were to stay depressed, it's very important that we go ahead and pull that fire extinguisher out and replace it. So there's no refilling these or anything like that. But just pull it out and replace it. Other than that, you get a little bit of storage here. More or less, you have a lot of water lines and your P-traps and stuff running through there. Go ahead and use it for storage, but just be aware with what you store in there. Of course, nothing that is going to damage those lines or poke them or anything like that. So coming here into the bedroom area, we of course have these really cool slider doors on each side. So you can unsnap those and of course spread them this way. You could do the same thing on that. That exposes a secondary TV location. You can go ahead and mount a TV there. Would work well for that space. Now what you do is they have the wiring is going to feed through down here and actually plug into on the other side. It's going to share like the booster plate and things like that. But that's all going to be on the other side of that wall. Oh, excuse me. It is nice to have that, that option to mount a TV here. And it's cool. I like that it hides away when you open up the doors. So sliding those back. Of course, make sure you go ahead and buckle them in before going down the road. That way they're not sliding open and closed going down the road on their own. Up here on either side of the bed, we do have storage there. Each one is going to have a hanging rod. That's going to essentially be your closet storage. Up top here, I generally will tell people this is where you're going to put your folded clothes. Of course, it's your camper, store whatever you want up there. And then we have lights here, just like those compartment lights, which you didn't see those, but if we push the center button there on the lens, it's going to turn that light on and off. Underneath the bed here, we have some storage. A very efficient use of space there. It's again, for such a, you know, a smaller camper, they are really not shorting you on space, storage space in any way. So tons and tons of storage here. I also like, and I'm going to move these pillows here out of the way. I do like these kind of recessed bedside tables there. Each side is going to have a 110 volt electricity, 15 amp outlet, and then you have a couple USB chargers for 12 for devices there. Those USB ports are 12 volts, so you can go ahead and charge your phones and things like that off grid. Up here we have your fantastic fan. That is the brand name of the fan. So this, of course, is going to be closed when going down the road. It's very important that we do keep it closed. I generally will make the joke in these presentations that it's something you only forget once because it's probably not going to be there when you get to where you're going. So make sure we close it. And then, of course, when we want to use it, we go ahead and open it up. We have 1 through 4 here on the speeds. It really gets up and moves a lot of air. This specific fan is an exhaust fan. So the idea being is we would open up both of these side windows. It's actually powerful enough to give you a nice cross breeze. That's going to really feel better anyway with that nice fresh air coming through the windows and then up and out. Only other really thing to note here on this is you do have a fuse holder that is a 4 amp bus style fuse. In the event that this doesn't work or you have any issues with that, of course, check that fuse first. Now, right above Lindsay's head there, we have your 9-volt smoke alarm. Now, that runs, again, on a 9-volt battery. It does have a test button on there. And just as important as the fire extinguisher, it is exceptionally important that we do test that smoke alarm every single time we take the unit out. And then, again, on her side, we have your emergency exit window, and I'm going to come over there and demo that. So emergency exit window here, of course, if you're particularly motivated enough, in the event that your entry door is blocked, you of course can grab a hold of this screen, pull it out, and then this will allow, you would unlatch this, and it actually will go full out like a doggy door. Of course, you can still use it as a standard window. In this position here is a single position window, but it still will allow air movement and things like that. So from there, you just go ahead to close it. You just pull it back and then make sure it's latched. Now, all of the windows are going to have these standard, metal mini blinds that kind of fits with that retro motif, but it does work very well in this capacity. So coming out here into the main living area, we of course have your television set here. And we saw that hole there on the other side, and it's actually right here. If you do choose to put that TV there on the other side of the wall, you're going to come down here, and of course this is going to be your outlet. And then you can also take advantage of the antenna booster there. So on the roof of this unit, they have an omnidirectional digital over-the-air antenna. What that means for you is with this green light and button on, that is powering that antenna. From there, we can go ahead and do a channel search on either one of the TVs. Again, if we added a TV there in the rear. And what that's going to do is that's going to automatically pull in the best, automatically find the best signal available and then pull in some programming, over-the-air programming with that signal. It's a very, very cool setup. Works really, really well here in this shop. We can pull channels from Waco. Works exceptionally well, and it's cool that it's so easy to use. You just have to do a channel search, and it's going to work out well for you. And then we talked about, if you remember at the beginning of the presentation, we took a look and we saw those RG6 cable fittings that were passing through to the designated TV area. I referenced them. They actually share that same pathway as that antenna. So what that means is that you can either use the antenna or you can use the park cable service. So if we're trying to utilize a park cable service, we do just need to hit that black button and turn that green light off. That's going to allow that signal to go ahead and bleed through. So many options when it does come to watching television within the unit. And then here we have your drive unit. Now this is going to be AM, FM radio, Bluetooth. We do have multiple inlets here. So we have 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, 3.5 millimeter auxiliary plug, HDMI. So this is actually arced to the television, so it can communicate with the television. This would be used for any like streaming services, Netflix, Fire Stick, whatever. You can plug those in here. That's going to feed to the television. If you have a thumb drive with some music on it, you can go ahead and plug that in there. You do have a ton of different options when it does come to utilizing this unit. Single mode button here. I'm not going to spend too much time on the functions of this. I find that most people have seen these before and are pretty well aware on how to run these. Now you do have two zones, so you can control those zones separate or together. Right now we're controlling them together, so that's why you see those two volume indicators. Now keep in mind though that you want to be aware of your volume there on the outside. You kind of know the new people and the people with the new camper in the campground, because they'll be like watching a DVD in here and inadvertently broadcasting it to the outside world there. So kind of pay attention to that. Make sure you're not one of those people. So turning the unit off, just going to hold this center button here. That's going to say goodbye and turn off. Down here we have your convenience center, micro monitor. It goes by a million different names, but they all pretty much function the same. This is going to give you a real-time readout on the level of full on your tanks. So the more lights we see, the fuller whatever we're testing is. So in this case, that battery is going to read full. Now your battery is going to read full anytime you are plugged into shore power. The converter within the unit is putting 13 plus volts to the battery at any given time. To get a true readout of where your battery really sits, you do need to go ahead and unplug from the wall or unplug from shore power and then come in here and go ahead and test. We have fresh water here. That's reading 2/3 full. We've went ahead and filled up that freshwater tank. We've pressurized the system. We've done all of our testing using that freshwater tank. So that's why that's reading full here. Black water and gray water, those should be pretty close to empty. Now on some of these units they have a third or a second gray water tank. That's why you have that indicator for that other tank. Although this is not the case with this unit. This is a pretty generic panel that is used across the board. Some have that third tank, some don't, so disregard that. And then over here we have some light switch. One's going to be the outside porch light. That's going to be the one here to the right. And then this one here is going to be the main ceiling lights. And again, those lights do have those switches right on the fixture. You can really choose which ones come on with that switch and which ones don't. All the way over here we have your water heater switch. Now we're going to go ahead and turn that on. This fault light is going to come on with that water heater switch. And again, just to kind of clarify things, this is the propane side of your water heater. This is your boondocking option, your off-grid option, and they do separate the switches. We covered that when we were at the water heater. So as you see, that light has turned off. That's our indicator on whether or not the water heater has lit. In our scenario here, it lit. There's no problems with it. Your experience may be slightly different. So what the water heater does is it cycles 3 times or tries to light 3 times. If it does not light by the end of that third try, it stops trying. What it then does is it momentarily powers down and it illuminates that fault light. In the event that happens, and it will happen quite often, generally the reason being is that maybe your propane valve is closed up front, maybe you're out of gas within those tanks, or oftentimes with a unit of this size, it just takes a little bit more time for that gas to make its way through the tank to the actual appliance. In the event that happens, go outside, make sure your valve's open, give the tanks a pull, make sure you do have gas still in the tank. If you have both of those things, then it's probably the last option we talked about. Come in, flip that switch in the off position, go ahead, flip it back on. It's going to go ahead and recycle another 3 times. Generally, as long as you've corrected the issue, it will light on the first try of your second cycle. So very straightforward there. We have your water pump switch there. As explained, that's how we're running the unit today. To demo all these features for you, we have water in that tank. We are using the 12-volt water pump to draw that water up from the tank to the fixtures and make it usable. And then we have your slide in and out switch here. This slide in and out switch is just a momentary switch. So if you take your finger off the switch, that slide out's going to stop. You know, being a Schwintek system, which again, we have two independently geared motors that are pushing that slide in and out, it is very important that we come fully in and go fully out. We want to avoid partial openings and short bursts. Reason being is because of the having two independently geared motors, it can actually bind that slide in its opening, and then it's not going to freely move in either direction. So fully in, fully out. Very, very important that we do that. And then beside there, we have your awning. Retract and extend, clearly marked there. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the awning, but keep in mind that it is very susceptible to wind damage. These awnings are designed for a clear, sunny day. You know, it would not be my recommendation if there is a chance of wind. You don't want that awning to take off on you. They are very expensive. Never, never, never leave that awning out and leave your campsite unattended. So I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it. I find that most people can figure that stuff out, but again, take those warnings as you will. Coming down low here, we have your carbon monoxide LP leak detector. Again, that's part of your safety equipment. And just as with any other part of your safety equipment, we do test that every single time we take the unit out. Have a test button there. It does function very much like a smoke alarm in the way that it alarms, but there's no battery to change. So this is wired into the 12-volt section of the camper. Again, make sure you're testing it. It does indicate to you which gas it is sensing depending on a series of lights there on the front. They outline the scale of those lights again on the front of the unit. Storage here on the underside of each dinette. Now this also does make a bed. Secondary sleeping area. It's going to utilize a pedestal style table and base to do so. When we're going to head and make this out, I'm not going to show you, we're just going to talk you through it. You're going to, of course, work the tabletop from the poles here. We're going to momentarily put the tabletop aside. We're then going to separate the poles from the flange here on the floor, and this is all just friction held together. So you may need to give it, you know, a slight pull to actually get it out. But once you have that completely disassembled, we're then going to re-grab that tabletop. We're going to go ahead and lay it on these slats. So you see you have these slats all the way around. We're just going to go ahead and lay the tabletop on those slats. We're then going to take the cushions and fill out that space. So, and I believe you're going to have to use this back one and then maybe this shorty here to make the right kind of puzzle piece combination there. It's a really, really, really cool setup. The size of it with having that wrap around lends itself to having a full-sized adult to be able to sleep there. So it's a really cool setup and very easy to do. Also here in the slide out, we have another light there. This one is of course going to be turned off independently. This isn't going to come on and off with the switch. And then we have another secondary 9-volt smoke alarm. Again, because we have two separate areas, we want to test both of them. Keep a few extra 9-volt batteries with you. I promise you do not want those batteries to start indicating to you that they're low, you know, at 3 a.m. Of course, nobody wants that, but of course, absolutely do not remove the battery, especially when you're in here using the unit, things like that. Switching places here, we're going to come here into the kitchen area. Of course, we can talk about this beautiful large stainless steel sink. I love these single base sinks. They work really well. I believe somewhere in here we're going to have a countertop extender to kind of fill out this space. I don't see it, and I'm not overly familiar, so don't quote me on that. But if there is not one, Retro Riverside RV should work on that because it would be cool to have one. Other than that, we have some lights here. We have a couple 110 volt outlets here. Now you have a GFI resettable receptacle here. Now all the receptacles in this unit are on the same circuit. So if one of them gets overloaded, they all do. This is going to be the reset point for all of the unit's receptacles. So keep that in mind. People may forget that. It functions very much like the outlet would in your bathroom. So most residential bathrooms have a GFI outlet right there in place. Again, you know, large storage cabinetry there. Nothing that we really need to focus on too much in our presentation, but just a very, very efficient use of space. And it seems to be like you have storage everywhere. So yeah, that's a good thing. Here we have your hood vent. That should look familiar. Very indicative of what you would see in the residential sector. Works really well for that. We have your cooktop here. Now this is my favorite cooktop that they do run with. Reason being specifically is because you can light the oven with the sparker or the igniter here. That's not a very common feature within the RV industry, so when I see it, I do truly enjoy it. To do so, you would go ahead and turn this oven knob to the flame, and we're going to hold that down. That's going to allow propane to flow to the burner. And then I would go ahead and turn this here. Of course, if we were to inspect down low, we would see a pilot light eventually light. From there, once I do see that pilot light, I can go ahead here and dial this to my temperature for cooking a meal. And then we also have that same feature here for the cooktop. We're going to turn it to high. And of course, we don't have to hold it down in this scenario, but if I go ahead and turn that, that's going to go ahead and light that. Something like that. So very cool. Very, very important. I have to say this, on every video that I do. This cooktop here, or this tempered glass, it's not a griddle. It's not a cooktop. It is a countertop extender. Please, please, please allow this burner to cool down before we go ahead and shut this. I have seen these be misused and come back broken. So it's just something that we need to talk about. And then up top here we have your microwave oven, our standard run-of-the-mill microwave, turntable style microwave. Nothing too crazy with that. Of course, you have those standard microwave settings there with your programming, your time cook, very just like any other microwave that I have ever used in my life. And then we have a switch here. So this fridge, so this is how we turn on the refrigerator. Now what you have here, and I love this refrigerator. This is a 12 volt compressor style refrigerator. So it's a completely different beast as to what you generally see in the RV world. And it's a breath of fresh air. Ammonia absorption refrigerators they do some things excellent, but some things not. Now this is going to work really well no matter what camping you're doing. And it's a large refrigerator. It consumes very little energy. It just works exceptionally well. It's a very, very good idea. I think we're going to see the industry go this way soon enough anyway. So what we have here is going to be your temperature control here, 1 through 5. We have a separate temperature control for the freezer. Very easy to use. As long as that switch is in the on position, that's going to work well for us. We have a little bar here that will kind of lock that door. If you have that door loaded up, I could see that swinging open going down the road. That's just going to be a secondary safety bar to keep your food from ending up here in the floor. So down low here we have your fuse panel breaker box. Everything here on the right side is going to be a automotive blade style fuse. Those are right here. It's going to be not a bad idea to pick up a variety pack of fuses. Go ahead and keep them with the unit. That's going to, of course, save you a lot of headache if you're out there in the middle of nowhere and one of these decides to burn out. There on the left side, we have your light switch style resettable breakers. They are labeled there in terms of function. Just like in your fuse panel box at home, those are going to be resettable. Very easy to restore function if you have any issues with those. And then we have your bunk area here. Not really much that I need to talk about back there, although you do have an emergency exit back there. It is worth noting and taking a look back there. You know, pretty straightforward stuff. We have your thermostat here. Now this thermostat is going to control both your furnace and your air conditioner. It is a single mode button thermostat, so all of our controls are going to be off of this button here, and then we control temperature up or down with that guy here. So I turn it on. It's going to send us through fan only modes for initially, and that's just going to be fan low, fan high. And then it's going to send us into our air conditioner modes, but with a set fan speed. So what that means, it says cool high or cool low, is that fan's going to run indefinitely. Even once it reaches the temperature that we have set here, that fan is never going to stop. So to get it to kind of correspond with us more in depth, we're going to go ahead and put it in this auto mode. So you have a cool and a low fan speed, both focusing on that auto mode. That, of course, once it reaches that temperature we have set here, it's going to then go ahead and shut off. If I go through those, it's going to take us there into the furnace mode, denoted by the heat option. If I go ahead and dial that up, which somebody already has, it's going to go ahead and click that boiler motor on immediately. 16 seconds after that, it actually ignites. By that 30-second mark, it's producing noticeable heat. I tell my customers that if it, right around that minute and a half, 2-minute mark, it may actually set off your smoke alarms. Now, coming straight from the manufacturer of the furnace, that is totally acceptable. What happens is they do not run as efficient as they should within that first 15 minutes of operation. As they continue to run, of course, that efficiency level goes up. It should stop setting off the smoke alarm. But if it does happen, don't worry about it. Just go ahead and reset it. No worries. It's only 15 minutes. And just going to go ahead and shut that off. We don't need any more heat. It's like 95 degrees today. So coming here into the bathroom, nothing too crazy in here. We have your toilet. This is going to be a pedal style flush. That's going to be on the right side of the bowl there. Left side if you're sitting on it, I guess. That's going to be a light press to fill up the bowl. It's very important that we always do keep some water in the bowl. That's going to help keep that seal nice and lubricated or supple, or however you want to think about it. It's also going to help keep the bad smells down in the toilet when we flush. Now, we're not going to spend a ton of time on it, but we do need to talk about toilet treatment and toilet paper and things like that. So single ply toilet paper, and you're going to want to use a deodorizing product as well as a tissue dissolver. Now there's again a market full of products. Do your research, figure out which one you like. Now those are going to go in when you start your camping trip, and you're going to generally put like a gallon of water down there with them, and you're good to go until you dump your unit. Now I personally like to keep some toilet treatment in my tank while I'm storing the unit. Again, that's especially when it's like sitting out in the sun, kind of, as gross as it sounds, baking and things like that. That deodorizer is going to, of course, help when it is just sitting there. So, again, I know I just barely tip of the iceberg stuff here, but if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to give our parts department a call. They would definitely be more than happy to educate you further on the products to use. So once we have done our business to flush, it's just going to be a full press down, and that's going to, of course, flush it. Shower, very, very standard of what you would see in an RV shower. Valves down here. You have a diverter. We have a tub, a small tub here, which is cool. but mainly you have an on off button there on your shower head. You're going to use that to conserve water consumption, especially hot water consumption. 6 gallons does not translate to an exceptionally long shower. You will probably most definitely find yourself doing military Navy style showers to go ahead and conserve that water consumption. And then really, I mean, other than that, of course, you have the kitchen fixtures there, medicine cabinet, storage, you know, blah, blah, blah. Nothing new. So tons of stuff. We do have a 12-volt exhaust fan here. This is going to be helpful to plug any, or to pull any moisture out of the air, you know, when showering and things like that. I think that just about covers it here on the inside of the Retro. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to give us a call. We really hope you enjoyed your walkthrough. Again, my name is Drew. Thank you.